Thank you for joining us for Goodnight Flagstaff. My name is Jamie Pa, and I am here with Montessori Forest Adventurers in the Forest of Mountain Air. And today we have Piper Buzzard. Say hi, Piper.
Hi.
And she's going to be reading you chapter 10. Chapter 10 of The Silver Chair, which is the second to the last book from the Chronicles of Narnia.
Last time we read together, the children in Puddlegum escaped the confines of the castle to explore beneath the city. The three escaped through a scullery door, found themselves in a rock slide, and were greeted by a mysterious otherworldly voice. Find out who that voice belongs to now.
So Piper, go ahead and tell them what grade you are in and anything else you want to tell them about yourself.
Alright, I'm in 3rd grade, and I go to mountain school.
Nice. All right, Piper, read away chapter 10.
Okay. Chapter 10. Travels Without the Sun. Who's there? Shouted 3 travelers. I'm the warden of the marches of Underland, and with me stand 100 Earthmen in arms, came the reply. Tell me quickly who you are and what's your errand in the deep room. We fell down by accident, said Plugium. Truthful enough. Many fall down and few return to the sunlit lands, said the voice. Make ready to come with me to the queen of the deep realm. What does she want with us? Asked Scrub cautiously. I do not know, said the voice. Her will not be questioned but obeyed. Well, he said these words. There was a noise, soft like an explosion, and immediately a cold light, gray with a little blue in it, flooded the cavern. All hoped that the speaker had been idly boast when he spoke of 100 followers died at once. Jill found herself blinking at the staring coming from the dense crowd. They were all of all sizes, from little domes barely a foot high to straightly figures taller than men. Were dreadful pale, and they stood up as still as statues. Apart from that, they were different. Some had tails, others not. Some wore great beards, and others had round, smooth faces, big as pumpkins. There were long, pointy noses and long, soft noses, like trunks and great blob noses. Several had single horns in the middle of foreheads, but in one respect they were all alike. Every face in the whole 100 was sad, as a face could be. They were so sad that after the first glance, Jill almost turned out to be afraid of them. She felt she would like to cheer them up. Well, said Puddlegum, rubbing his hands, this is just what I needed. If those chaps don't teach me to take a serious view of life, I don't know what will. Look at fellow walrus mustache, or that one with the get up, said the leader of the Earthmen. There was nothing else to be done. The 3 travelers scrambled to their feet and joined hands. One wanted the touch of friend's hand at a moment like that, and the 3 Earthmen came all around them, patting on large, soft feet, on which some had 10 toes, some 12, and others none. March, said the warden, and march they did. In the cool light from a large ball on the top of a long pole, and the tallest of the gnomes carried this at the head of the proceed. By its cheerless rays, they could see that there were natural caverns and walls. Roof were knocked, twisted, and gashed into 1,000 fantastic shapes, and the stony floor sloped downward as they proceeded. It was worse for Jill than the others because she hated dark underground places. And as they went on, the cavern got lower and narrower, and when at last the light barons stood aside, and the gnomes one by one stooped down, all except the very small one, and stepped into a little dark crack and disappeared. She felt she could bear it no longer. I can't go in there. I can't, I won't, she panted. The Earthmen say nothing, but they will lower spears and point them at her. Steady, pull, said Polygon. Those big fellows won't be crawling if they get wider later on. There would be one thing about the underground. We shan't get any rain. Oh, you don't understand. I can't really, Jill. Think about how I felt in that cliff pole, said Scrub. You go first, Puddleglum, and I'll come after her. That's right, said Marshmallow, getting down his hands and knees and keeping a grip on my heels. Well, and Scruff will hold on to yours. We'll all be comfortable. Comfortable, said Jill. But she got down, and they crawled onto their elbows. It was a nasty place. You had to go flat on her face. It seemed like half an hour through. It meant to have really been 5 minutes. It was hot. Jill felt like she was being smothered. But at last, dim light showed ahead. The tunnel grew wider, higher, and they came out hot, dirty, and shaken into a cave so large that it scarcely seemed scarcely seemed like a cave at all. It was full of dim, drowsy radiance, so that here they had no need of the Earthman's strange lantern. The floor was soft with some kind of moss and outgrew many strange shapes, branches and tall trees, but flabby like mushrooms. They stood too far apart to make a forest. It was more like a park. The light is a greenish gray. It seemed to be coming from both the moss, and it seemed to be starting enough from them and the moss, and it was not strong enough to reach the roof of the cavern, which must have been a long way overhead. Across the sleeping place they were now to march. It was very sad, but with a quiet sort of sadness, like soft music. Here they passed dozens of strange animals lying on turf, either dead or asleep. Jill could not tell. These were mostly of the dragonish or bat-like sort. Pluggum did not know any of them were. Do they grow here? Scrub asked Warden. He seemed surprised to be spoken to, but replied, no. All these have found their way down behind shams and caves out of overland into the deep realm. Many come down and few return to the sunlit lands. It is said that they will awake at the end of the world. His mouth shut like a box when he said this. And in the great silence of the cave, the children felt that they would not dare to speak again. The bare feet of Gums patted the deep moss, made no sound. There was no wind. There were no birds. It was just the sound of water. And there was no sound of breathing from the strange beast. When they had walked several miles, they came to a wall of rock, and it's in a low archway, leading into another cavern. It was not, however, so bad, at least the entrance and Jill could go through without bending her head. It brought them to a smaller cave, long and narrow, about the shape and size of a Congress, and here, filling almost the whole length of it, lay an enormous man, fast asleep. The whole length lay it was far bigger than any of the giants, and his face was not like a giant's, noble and beautiful. His beast rose and fell gently. The snow beard which covered him to the waist, a pure silver light. No one saw where it came from, rested upon him. Who's that? Asked Pauline, and it was so long since anyone had spoken that Jill wondered how he had the nerve. That is old Father Time, who once was king over in Overland, said the warden, and now he has sunk down into the deep realms and lies dreaming of all the things that were done in the upper world. Many sink down and few return to the opposite land. They say he will wake up at the end of the world, and out of the cave they passed into another, but then into another and another, so on until Jill lost count. But always they were going downhill, and each cave was lower than the last, till you very thought of the way and deep place where the warden commanded as his tearless ladder meant to be lit again. They passed into a cave so wide and dark that they could see nothing except that it was right in front of them, a strip of pale sea ran down into the river, into still water. In front of them, a strip of pale sand ran into the water, and beside lay a little jetty, a ship made without mast or sail, but there were many oars. They were made to go aboard her and lead forward the bows, where were clear space in front of the rows, benches, and seat running around the inside of the bulk horse. One thing I'd like to know, said Paul, is whether anyone from our world, from up atop, has ever done this trip before. Many have taken ships to plow beaches, replied the warden, and yes, I know, interrupted. A few returned also. You needn't say it again. You are the chap, one idea, aren't you? The children huddled close together on each side of the bargain. They had thought him too wet blanket while they were still above ground, but down here he seemed the only comfortable thing he had. And then the pale lantern was hung from headships. The earthmen sat to the oars, and the very ship began to move. The lantern cast its light on only a very short way.
Identifying stuff?
They could see nothing but.
Piper got busy at that point, so I will continue. Looking ahead, they could see nothing but smooth, dark water fading into absolute blackness. Oh, whatever will become of us, said Jill despairingly. Now don't you let your spirits down, Pole, said the Marsh Wiggle. There's one thing you've got to remember. We're back on the right lines. We were to go under the ruined city, and we are under it. We're following the instructions again. Presently they were given food. Flat, flabby cakes of some sort which had hardly any taste, and after that they gradually fell asleep. But when they woke, everything was just the same. The gnomes were still rowing, the ship still gliding on, still dead blackness ahead. How often they woke and slept and ate and slept again, none of them could ever remember. And the worst thing about it was that you began to feel as if you had always lived on that ship, in that darkness, and to wonder whether sun and blue skies and wind and birds had not been only a dream. They had almost given up hoping or being afraid about anything when at last they saw lights ahead, dreary lights like that of their own lantern. Then, quite suddenly, one of these lights came close, and they saw that they were passing another ship. After that they met several ships. Then, staring till their eyes hurt, they saw that some of the lights ahead were shining on what looked like wharfs, walls, towers, and moving crowds. But still there was hardly any noise. By Jove, said Scrub, a city. And soon they all saw that he was right. But it was a strange city. The lights were so few and far apart that they would hardly have done for scattered cottages in our world. But the little bits of the place which you could see by the lights were like glimpses of a great seaport. You could make out in one place a whole crowd of ships loading or unloading, in another bales of stuff and warehouses, in a third walls and pillars that suggested great palaces or temples, and always, wherever the light fell, endless crowds, hundreds of earthmen, jostling one another as they padded softly about their business in narrow streets, broad squares, or up great flights of steps. Their continued movement made a sort of soft murmuring noise as the ship drew nearer and nearer, but there was not a song or a shout or a bell or the rattle of a wheel anywhere. The city was as quiet and nearly as dark as the inside of an ant hill. At last their ship was brought alongside a quay and made fast. The three travelers were taken ashore and marched up into the city. Crowds of earthmen, no two alike, rubbed shoulders with them in the crowded streets, and the sad light fell on many sad and grotesque faces. But no one showed any interest in the strangers. Every gnome seemed to be as busy as it was sad, though Jill never found what they were so busy about. But the endless moving, shoving, hurrying, and the soft pad, pad, pad went on. At last they came to what appeared to be a great castle, though few of the windows in it were lighted. Here they were taken in and made to cross a courtyard, and to climb many staircases. This brought them to the end of a great murkily lit room. But in one corner of it, oh joy, there was an archway filled with a quite different sort of light, the honest yellowish warm light of such a lamp as humans use. What showed by this light inside the archway was the foot of a staircase which wound upward between walls of stone. The light seemed to be coming from the top. Two earthmen stood on each side of the arch, like sentries or footmen. The warden went up to these two and said, as if it were a password, "Many sink down to the underworld, and few return to the sunlit lands." They answered, as if it were the countersign. Then all three put their heads together and talked. At last, one of the two gnomes in waiting said, "I tell you, the Queen's Grace is gone from hence on her great affair. We had best keep these top dwellers in strait prison till her homecoming. Few return to the sunlit lands." At that moment, the conversation was interrupted by what seemed to Jill the most delightful noise in the world. It came from above, from the top of the staircase, and it was a clear, ringing, perfectly human voice, the voice of a young man. "What quail are you keeping down there, Mulligatharum?" he shouted. "Overworlders, ha! Bring them up to me, and that presently." "Please it your highness to remember," began Mulligatharum, but the voice cut him short. "It pleases my highness principally to be obeyed, old mutterer. Bring them up," it called. Mulligatharum shook his head, motioned to the travelers to follow, and began going up the staircase. At every step the light increased. There were rich tapestries hanging on the walls. The lamplight shone golden through the curtains at the staircase head. The earthmen parted the curtains and stood aside. The three passed in. They were in a beautiful room, richly tapestried, with a bright fire on a clean hearth, and red wine and cut glass sparkling on the table. A young man with fair hair rose to greet them. He was handsome and looked both bold and kind, though there was something about his face that didn't seem quite right. He was dressed in black and altogether looked a little bit like Hamlet. "Welcome, overworlders," he cried. "But stay a moment, I cry your mercy. I have seen you two fair children, and this your strange governor before. Was it not you three that met me by the bridge on the borders of Ettinsmore when I rode there by my lady's side?" "Oh, you were the Black Knight who never spoke?" exclaimed Jill. "And was that lady the Queen of Underland?" asked Puddleglum, in no very friendly voice. And Scrub, who was thinking the same, burst out, "Because if it was, I think she was jolly mean to send us off to a castle of giants who intended to eat us. What harm had we ever done her, I should like to know?" "How?" said the Black Knight with a frown. "If you were not so young a warrior boy, you and I must have fought to the death on this quarrel. I can hear no words against my lady's honor. But of this you may be assured, that whatever she said to you, she said of a good intent. You do not know her. She is a nosegay of all virtues, as truth, mercy, constancy, gentleness, courage, and the rest. I say what I know. Her kindness to me alone, who can in no way reward her, would make an admirable history. But you shall know and love her hereafter. Meanwhile, what is your errand in the deep lands? And before Puddlegum could stop her, Jill blurted out, Please, we are trying to find Prince Rilian of Narnia. And then she realized what a frightful risk she had taken. These people might be enemies. But the knight showed no interest. Rilian? Narnia? He said carelessly. Narnia? What land is that? I have never heard the name. It must be 1,000 leagues from those parts of the overworld that I know. But it was a strange fantasy that brought you seeking this. How do you call him? Billion? Trillion? In my lady's realm, indeed. To my certain knowledge, there is no such man here. He laughed very loudly at this. Ha 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 ha! And Jill thought to herself, I wonder, is that what's wrong with this face? Is he a bit silly? We had been told to look for a message on the stones of the city ruinous, said Scrub, and we saw the words, under me. The knight laughed even more heartily than before. Ha 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 ha! You were the more deceived, he said. Those words meant nothing to your purpose. Had you but asked my lady, she could have given you better counsel, for those words are all that is left of a longer script, which in ancient times as she well remembers, expressed the verse, Though under earth and throneless now I be, yet while I lived, all earth was under me. From which it is plain that some great king of the ancient giants who lies buried there caused this boast to be cut in the stone over his sepulchre, though the breaking up of the stones and the carrying away of others for new buildings and the filling of the cuts with rubble has left only 2 words that can still be read. Is it not the merriest jest in the world that you should have thought they were written to you? This was like cold water down the back to Scrub and Jill, for it seemed to them very likely that the words had nothing to do with their quest at all, and that they had been taken in by a mere accident. Don't you mind him, said Puddleglum. There are no accidents. Our guide is Aslan, and he was there when the giant king caused the letters to be cut, and he knew already all things that would come of them, including this. This guide of yours must be a long liver, friend, said the knight, with another of his laughs. Wah ha ha ha! Jill began to find them a little irritating. And it seems to me, sir, answered Puddlegum, that the lady of yours must be a long liver too, if she remembers the verse as it was when they first cut it. Very shrewd, Frog-face, said the knight, clapping Puddlegum on the shoulder and laughing again. And you have hit the truth. She is of divine race, and knows neither age nor death. I am the more thankful to her for all her infinite bounty to such a poor mortal wretch as I. For you must know, sirs, I am a man under most strange afflictions, and none but the Queen's grace would have had patience with me. Patience, said I, but it goes far beyond that. She has promised me a great kingdom in Overland, and, when I am king, her own most gracious hand in marriage. But the tale is too long for you to hear, fasting and standing. Hi there, some of you. Bring wine and up-boilers food for my guests. Please you, be seated, gentlemen. Little maiden, sit in this chair. You shall hear it all. And that is the end of chapter 10. Thanks for joining us tonight. Good night, Flagstaff.